Stop wobbling the table as well. He does it every time, doesn't he? He's just wobbling constantly, wobbling the table. Anyway.
Better things to do my Friday evening. No, right, okay, people are joining, so that's always a good start. So, what are we talking about? What are you talking about?
Goal setting.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, this week is goal setting.
Not like goals in the garden.
No, not those kind of goals. So, welcome to a Friday evening live chat. I'm sure that most of you have better things to do on a Friday evening, so I'm aware that quite a lot of you might be watching this at a different time. Yeah, absolutely. But either way, you're very welcome. And of course, as ever, we want to thank Marmalade Network. It's Marmalade Network that kind of support us and sponsor us to be able to do these live chats to you every week. So if you don't know who they are, go and click on the link that I think Blaine has added to this. Go and see who they are. They're good guys. They are there to support you guys, and we are the ADI supports for them. So if you're needing anything DVSA related, then it's us. If you're needing anything Marmalade Network, it's them. And go and find them on their Facebook pages. Look at the ways that they benefit driving instructors. There's lots of stuff out there that is free for you guys to join, and it's all commission based as well, so there's lots of ways of you benefiting from them. So that's our little blurb about Marmalade Network.
Right, see you next week.
Anyway, we are here this evening to talk about goal setting. Do you want to kick it off with where you're at with goal setting?
Not really. I think it's interesting, like I've said on these other ones we've done before, as an old fart, then I find this stuff quite interesting. I try it and I struggle sometimes, and I implement it, but certainly goal setting I think is very useful because it outlines to the pupil what they want to work on, what they're going to do and how we're going to get there. Am I right in thinking that? And I think it is useful because everyone knows where they sort of are, and you know what the pupils are looking for and what's frustrating them or things that they want to improve on, rather than the old-fashioned way would just be to go through a syllabus and go through it whatever, regardless of what their goals are.
I think there are numerous reasons for goal setting, but I guess perhaps what will be useful this evening is to give you some top tips. So perhaps the five key points, if you like, when it comes to goal setting. So for you guys to keep in your mind that are going to help you set your goals that are going to be appropriate and all the rest of it. I'm not necessarily going to harp on and on about SMART goals. You may well have heard about SMART goals. If you want to do that, kind of look it up. Personally, for me, it doesn't work. Whether that's the kind of dyslexic side in me that doesn't kind of get the SMART little bit of it and having to work out what all that means. So I'll kind of explain what I do in a bit of kind of instructor language, if you like, and perhaps it would be useful to say where you have struggled, perhaps as more of a traditional instructor.
Yeah. I mean, certainly what you say about SMART and things like that, like MSPSL even, I struggle with stuff like that. Anything that's, I can't remember what it's called now, but our new mnemonic, what's it called?
And accurate.
Yeah, one of them, yeah. I just really struggle with those, but anyway.
Okay, so 5 golden rules for setting goals. I have written them down, so bear with me if I'm just going to glance, because otherwise I'll get them all mixed up in the wrong way round. Set goals that are motivating. So I think this is the first thing to think about, and this is regardless of what you're setting goals for, but let's look at it from a lesson point of view. So let's make it relevant from a pupil, you, teaching, tool kind of point of view. So setting goals that are motivating. So of course those have to be pupil set goals, because they have to be goals that are going to be motivated. Your pupil is going to be motivated to do. There's absolutely no point in setting goals if they don't actually mean anything to the person that has set them. So again, just going to glance at my key points here so I get it right. So it's really important that these are goals that are important for the pupil and they have a value, and so they have a reason for doing them. If they don't have a reason, if they don't have a why we're doing them bit, then they're almost kind of aimless. They don't actually have any meaning. So when it comes to setting your goals, think about what it is that you're wanting to achieve. And they need to want it, because that's where the motivation is going to come from. And motivation is the key. So definitely have a think about that. The tip there is to ask the why. So you may well have a goal in mind that the pupil wants, or that you've perhaps encouraged the pupil to look for. There's no reason why you can't do that. Encouraging pupils to find goals is perfectly okay. Your job is to provide the structure So that's absolutely fine if you're providing the structure, as long as the motivation has come from them and the reasons why. So the top tip there is to have a reason why. So once you've set that goal, why are you doing? What are the benefits of doing it? What are the advantages of achieving this goal? So linked to the motivation. So that's a key point there. Now, I often get asked what kind of questions as an instructor we should be asking when it comes to setting goals. There aren't any particular key questions that I would necessarily suggest, but I can give you some ones that I would use. I'm pretty sure that all of you have heard about this kind of asking the people what they want to do today, that being one of the reasons for one of the ways of setting goals. Personally, and I know others have different views on this, I don't ask a what do you want to do today question. Those of you that may have tried it may have found that the answers you get back are a bit wishy-washy. You get, well, you're the instructor, you tell me, or what do you think, or I don't know. And I would suggest that if you're getting answers back to those type of questions, it's because the questions are crap, not the people. Okay, so for me personally, what do you want to do today doesn't provide any structure. Now, regardless of what you're calling yourself, whether you're calling yourself an instructor, a coach, whatever it is, your role is to provide some structure. And you can hear there in that coaching question, what you want to do today, it's too wishy-washy, it's too broad. So if you listen to the difference between what do you want to do today and a question that might be framed more in the term of based on your last drive, what is it that you still have some questions about? Or based on your last drive, what is it that you would like to continue to work on? Or within your learning journey, where are you in your learning journey? What is going to be the next thing that you feel like you need to cover to make this hour and a half worthwhile? So some kind of question like that allows the people a bit of a focus, provides that kind of scaffolding around their ideas, but it isn't as wishy-washy as the what do you want to do today.
What about asking them what they've reflected on the last week since the last lesson? If it's been a week,
I think that this is perhaps a good way of doing it, because in fact of all the times that you should be setting goals, of course it's the end of the previous lesson. I mean, goals can be set obviously throughout the lesson depending on what it is that you're working on, but as a whole, when you're wrapping up a last drive, that's your opportunity to be looking at setting goals for future driving when it's fresh in the mind, you've just been doing it, and their questions, their needs, their experiences are still kind of fresh there.
And do you think the conversation may change a little bit if you know they're doing private practice? So,
I think absolutely.
That can throw things up, can't it? Certainly parents saying you need to do this, you need to do that, or something might have happened. So reflecting back on the last week, not necessarily their drive with you, but their last drive, or things they've been talking to their friends about, or something they might have seen on YouTube or something like that. It has
to be relevant for their needs, and this is where that kind of tip one about motivation is absolutely key in it coming from them. So particularly if I know that I've got a pupil who is doing private practice, I very often, while we're doing the whole cockpit drill and putting seatbelts on and things, I very often might start off by saying, have you been out in your little car this week? And then my next question would be, discovered anything? Any questions about that? How did it go? Those type of things. And 9 times out of 10, whatever goal that they might have been wanting to work on at the end of our last drive may well be changed. So, for example, I've had one this week where I have said to my pupil, have you been out in your little car? And she had been with her dad. And I said, so how did that go? Any problems, any issues? And she said that she had gone to Tesco's with him and had the parking hadn't gone very well. So we looked at that, and actually she was driving forward into a bay, and that's rather relevant at the moment, and she had said that she found it quite difficult to get forward to a bay, and then reversing out and all that kind of stuff. And so I asked her whether she felt that was something that she would like to go off and do now, and she did. So the roundabouts were put on hold, off we went, and we did parking into bay, forwards, backwards, double parking, all that kind of stuff. We did it in a real life environment, so we did it in the Tesco's that she'd gone to, so it made sense for her. So yeah, absolutely, and that was motivation. She had a motivation for doing that, because she discovered a need herself. And of course this then meant that when she went out the following week with her dad, she had the ability to now put right what she had gone wrong with. So yeah, absolutely, I think that they can certainly change, but your goals are definitely there to use as a link, if you like, to previous learning, whether that was with you or with a family member, and of course at the end of that session where you're linking it into the next session. So high priority, lots of why. So you've set the goals, you need to find the motivation behind them, so the benefits of why you're going to do them, the advantages of actually achieving these goals is vital for the goals not to be wishy-washy. Second thing is, yes, the goals do have to be specific. Now, I'm not going to go off and talk about SMART goals for the reasons I said earlier. You can certainly go off and look those. You can use that if that helps you. As I said personally, it doesn't help me. But the goals do need to be specific. And I guess what I mean by specific is high priority. So, again, if you are... Do you need a coffee?
No, yeah, I could do.
If you are setting high priority goals, these are goals that are going to be motivational by the very nature of the fact that they are top in the priority list. But it's very important that the goals that you're setting are specific enough to be focusing on just one or maybe potentially two outcomes. Because I think that if you go off and set random unstructured goals, it's harder to know whether they've been achieved or not. And I think this is possibly something that you struggled with.
Yeah.
And I know I get a lot of feedback from ADIs, particularly ADIs who have perhaps been in the profession for a number of years, who have settled into that comfort zone of, well, let's go off and do a general drive and see what happens. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I think also, would you say the goals have to be subject related or skill related, or doesn't matter?
I don't think it particularly matters, because I don't think it matters as long as it's being pupil motivated, because it will be relevant to them. So yes, there may be a pupil who goes off and says, I want to go off and do traffic lights, for example. They might have the skills of doing traffic lights, but it's a knowledge thing. So again, it's about asking the questions about why is it that you're wanting to do this, and
What bit don't you understand?
yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Pete. Nice to see you made it. Just a quick look at Richards. He says, I usually ask, so what did we get up to last week? Yeah, I think that's a nice one.
Just remind me.
Yeah, just remind me. The one I've started to use, which is really interesting, and I use it at the end of the lessons, is what did we discover last week? Because that doesn't necessarily mean knowledge or understanding about a road specifically, but I quite often get pupils who answer that with what they discovered about themselves, and that's really fascinating. Yeah. So what have you discovered that is quite a good one as well. So keeping your goals specific with a high priority, because that then links to my hint one. Number 3 is write them down. Now, I'm probably at fault for not necessarily doing this myself, but I do find that when I write the goals down, and the thing that works for me is just post-it notes, something really simple, goals written down, why we're going to achieve them, and are stuck on dashboards.
Certainly, I would say same if there's any PDIs watching this for your part 3 as it stands at the moment. If you get PSD whatever, write it down and stick it on the dash. It's so easy to forget what you're doing halfway through, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you think, well, I'm going off to do emerging, you start doing turning and you can't remember. So just writing it down can be a useful tool for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So sticking it on the dashboard, making it high visual, what's the word I'm looking for?
Visual, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so making it visible basically, so it's in your eyesight and your mind all the time what it is you're going to go off and work on. So writing it down, and the other nice thing about writing it down is that it then got a conclusion to it, so you can revisit it to see where you're at and whether your goals are being achieved, and of course it then gets linked into the roundup of the lesson and future goals as well. So post-it notes are great. I do have them absolutely everywhere. The nice thing about it is that you can then frame it positively, so not literally putting a frame around it, but when you're writing that goal down, expressing it in a positive, so I will, etc., etc., rather than I don't want to or I won't, if that makes sense. So expressing that physically, written down in a positive way can be really a real benefit. It makes a big psychological difference to a mindset. So by the end of the lesson, I will be able to do this or whatever, rather than I don't want to be still doing that. So
absolutely.
Framing it positively.
Just going to scroll people's down.
I think, okay, I've got a few things coming in. Pete wants to know where we got the mug from. I think I've been a Christmas present, I think, Pete, but go Amazon it. Most things are on Amazon, eBay. Sheila says, have you got any tips? I'm having my second test in June, failed my first in March. Yes, Sheila, but probably we're better off talking about that afterwards to make it specific for you. Can we scroll up?
Yeah, what I'd say, Sheila, is first of all find us on YouTube, because all these live tests Lou's been doing over the last few weeks are all on the YouTube channel. So if you YouTube Blaine Walks, there's a few channels, but you'll see the one with the standards check stuff on it. I'll put a link in the comments after this as well. That's a good start. There's lots of stuff in there. Have a look at that stuff, and then you have questions for Lou. And of course, we have the site that's got over 100 videos to cover the part 3 as well.
Yeah. So just you're not on your own. We're here, but I won't lose my thread now if that's okay with you.
Because it's a bit of a big subject.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, absolutely. Neil says that writing them down. I'm incredibly forgetful, Neil as well, and I see something and I'm off on a tangent. So yeah, absolutely, writing them down is a great way of doing that. The second one is to have an action plan. So it's all very well having your goal. It's all very well knowing what the outcome you want to do, what it wants to be, to what you want to achieve, but having a way of getting there. So to be able to achieve the goal, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we're going to do the other. So, for example, breaking it down, if your goal for the day is to master turn in the road, it may well be that your mini goals are clutch control and hill starts. That's it. So we're going to go off and practice those first, and then link those into the skills that we need to achieve the goal. So certainly having an action plan that's broken down, and that then becomes the plan for your lesson. Certainly again works for me. And the fifth tip here is to link that in to roles and responsibilities. So if we bring it all back to a standards check, but of course this is not just standards check related, this is related to every day, is that the goals and the aim of the lesson and the learning outcomes and the objectives, whatever you're wanting to call it, but the mission, if you like, that you are going off to go off and achieve is linked to roles and responsibilities. So it's linked to help. It's linked to level of instruction, what the pupil is needing from you, what you are going to give the pupil. So, for example, if the goal is to do roundabouts independently, you're then wanting to know why that's important, how you're going to get those skills up to be able to do the roundabouts independently, and within there, quite probably it is a few prompts first, if you see what I mean. So give me a few prompts, help me with this little bit, Louise, etc., etc. And that's linked to your roles and responsibility. So those of you that haven't heard me ranting on and on about risk management, this is your risk management. Risk management is not about hazard perception. It's not about saying what's the risk of this bus pulling out, what's the risk of the man walking the dog. It's nothing to do with that. That's hazard perception. Risk management is roles and responsibilities. In other words, did everybody know what everyone was going to do? So if you are linking your goal setting in to your level of instruction with a question somewhere in there that says something along the lines of, so to reach this goal, how do you need me to help you? What can I do to help you achieve this goal? That then becomes your role. Can we turn our sound up? Is it us that we need to speak louder, or is it you, Chris, that maybe we have to lean a bit closer for you, Chris? I'll try and speak up a bit. I know that I am softly spoken.
No, we're not done something.
No, I knew you were going to sing it. So, linking it to the roles and responsibilities, so those kind of questions, how can I help you achieve your goal? What do you need from me? How can I support you with that? Anything like that. It doesn't matter as long as what you're doing is asking your pupil to then reflect on the support that they're needing, how much independence they're going to do, and what their responsibilities are and what your responsibilities are. And then, of course, the trick is to do that. So this is a big thing that driver instructors fall down on. That the pupil might say, can you talk me through this? And then the ADI will do Q&A instead. So making sure that that you are matching your roles and responsibilities, if you like, with what it is that you've said. So actually doing it on the move. Just have a little read of Neil. I think that's Chris. That's just Chris telling us to talk louder, and that he'll listen again if he needs to with his megaphone. Done my part 3 14 years ago. Has it changed that much? What, the part 3 or the standards check?
Both have changed a lot.
Yes, Sharon. There are some fundamental differences between the old core competencies and what it is that is going to be expected now. Not so much at the part 3, if you're talking about from a part 3 point of view, but from a standards check point of view, the core competencies, yes, are still in there. They're buried in all that fluffy 17 other core competencies that you've got there, but there are some significant differences. But maybe we will Maybe that's another live chat, isn't it? Comparing an old check test format to a new standards check. But again, we've got lots of helpful videos on there, and I can answer anything specific, obviously separately, Sharon, that's not a problem. So Chris is going to listen to us again when he can get closer to his
and
device.
It will stay on our Facebook page forever. Oh, going to block everyone there. And we put these onto our YouTube channel as well, if you prefer to watch things on there.
So Neil says, for risk management, I always say that I will provide a safety net. Sorry, I'm just going to do this. Always provide a safety net. That is, I'll bail you out if you get into a fix. Am I right to always do this, do you think? Yes, to a certain extent, Neil, but I also think it's a case of if there's a possibility that you're throwing them into the deep end and they're going to need to be bailed out, quite possibly the level of instruction needs to be thought about first. So have a little think about that. Are you having to bail a pupil out because you shouldn't have been asking them to do it in the first place? Or was it appropriate to be giving them that much responsibility and independence and then backing off when you're needing it? So certainly, yeah, I may well say something fairly light-hearted about, of course I'll stop us killing anyone and I'll hopefully stop someone killing us as well. Apart from that, you're responsible as you always are. So, but I then, of course, would link it very specifically to the goals. So the goals, the whys we're doing it, the hows we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, and how much help do you want from me to help you support that. So that would be quite important.
Bit busy tonight.
Yeah, nice to see everybody. So Sharon, again, I passed my standards check last year, so must be doing something right. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Sharon. Always worth a reflect. Sorry, my husband is getting him away. Always worth reflecting. And I think, Sharon, those of you guys that come and look for tools, techniques, development, CPD, whatever you want to call it, with a standards check done, great. That's the time to do it, because that's the time where your 17 criteria, they're telling you areas to look at. So absolutely, you might be doing some great things right, but it doesn't hurt to just keep topping ourselves up and making sure we're on track. So yeah, absolutely. Are there any videos on your website of example lessons with a real pupil? Loads of stuff, David, so it depends on where you're at, what you're looking for. If you're looking for specific standards check stuff, there's some great examples of driving instructors who are preparing for their standards check with real pupils. So you'll see driving instructors with real pupils doing a lesson and then me feeding back on that. I'm currently pretty much filming every single lesson I do for various reasons, partly because of the changes, but partly because you guys are wanting that, where I can show you examples of what I do, how I might structure a lesson, but breaking it down into the 17 criteria so you can see examples of that being done with different pupils as well. So yeah, absolutely go and have a look, and I'm sure you'll find something there that will be useful. Bailing out, I like that, bailing out. Now I think it says it all, doesn't it? Absolutely rescuing, bailing out, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what words you're using. I think use terminology that is light-hearted and everyone knows what it means. That's fine by me. Bailing out is great. Yeah. It's probably better than stopping you killing someone, possibly, in hindsight. So yeah, carry on.
Again, it would depend, joking aside, it would depend on who you're talking to. The good sign of a good instructor is to adapt what you're saying and how you're saying it to who you're saying it to. So some people, killing someone will put them in a panic attack. Other people, like Josh, who got a video somewhere on Josh, who it was a Friday and didn't want to kill anyone because he didn't want to miss his Friday night out. So and you sort of know the relationship with that person and what's going to push their buttons and what's going to make them laugh. Because if there's a happy atmosphere in the vehicle and a light-hearted atmosphere, they're going to be much more open to you and learning. Much more learning is going to take place, and you're going to enjoy what you do as well, which is pretty important, isn't it?
Peter, after attending a class in Cambridge with you both, I love using mind maps now. When doing my maps, could I use it at the beginning to set goals? Absolutely, and that's a really good point, Peter. It doesn't matter how you're doing it, what you're using, from a tools and techniques point of view, whatever works for you and your pupil. But absolutely, if you are finding that you can mind map a goal, and that brings the whole lesson together. It looks at a goal. In fact, you could even mind map it from the point of view of you put your goal in the middle and you're mind mapping all the ways that you're going to reach this goal. Absolutely. I think that's a really nice way of using mind maps, and of course, as you say, setting goals and bringing those 5 tips that I've just said in. So looking at making it specific, having action plans, because of course your mind map is going to be your action plan, writing it down, having it in front of you, being able to revisit it, all those type of things. I think it absolutely ticks those boxes, definitely.
Yeah, and Lou talked about last week, scaling obviously fits into that as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. So just a quick run through of my 5 tips. Bear with me while I have a little look. Yeah, I have 5 tips. Yeah, roles and responsibilities.
Oh, okay.
So your 5 golden rules for goal setting is to set goals that are motivational, but it has to be the pupil's motivation, so it has to be the pupil that's wanting to do it, and that has to be linked with the why, so asking why it's going to be useful, because the why is the motivation behind it. The goal has to be specific. In other words, it has to be high priority, and it has to be fairly narrow, so fairly focused, so 1 or 2 goals at a time. The goal should be written down because it's visual, it keeps it fresh in the head, and should be visual during the lesson as well and can be referred to as well. Should be linked to an action plan, doesn't matter how you do that. Mind mapping is a perfect example of how you would do that. But so how you're actually going to get to that goal, so those steps that are going to allow you to achieve it. And of course linked to roles, responsibilities, level of instruction and level of control.
Okay, so would you say that you could revisit that goal? So let's say it's an hour-and-a-half lesson, you could revisit it how often you felt need to do 10-15 minutes to see how it's going? And also, would you say that each session could have more than one goal? So you could do a goal for the first 15-20 minutes and then go on to another goal and so on?
As long as that has been established, then absolutely. So our goal for the next 5 minutes is to not stall, not stop, whatever it is.
So the goal doesn't have to be for the whole session.
No, absolutely, no. Which is why it has to be. Which is why it's specific. So it's specific for what you're doing, and it's the priority. So it's the thing that is priority at that moment.
So it could just be one day. It could be my goal is to get round this roundabout without swapping lanes or without killing the cyclist like I did last week.
Absolutely,
And then you can move.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so it's worth saying, because I think some people may think a goal is for the whole session. It could literally be for one junction, or it could be for the whole session, depending on what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. But the secret is for it to be focused and to have a priority to it.
And would you say that you always have to have a goal, or is it okay to drive around without a goal sometimes?
I personally would say that there would always be a reason for driving around, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Even if the reason is to be driving around and see what comes up, if that makes sense.
So the goal would be,
Yeah.
it could even be just hazard perception or
Yeah.
planning or route planning or
Yeah,
whatever.
absolutely. So I think just to go for a general drive is a little bit airy-fairy, but that's just my own personal thing. It makes it
It's not a particularly good use of time, is it? Yeah, it's not. And I think from the perspective of maybe the pupil, may not feel they're getting value for money because there's nothing to gauge on what they've done and how they've achieved and how they've got better.
Douglas says, hi guys, are the videos of you, Lou, teaching and breaking it down in the same section as the mock test section? These are ones I'm recording at the moment, Douglas, so these are going to go on at the point where I've got enough to make it worthwhile for you to actually see. So they're happening at the moment. I've been recording today, recording again tomorrow, so certainly in the next few weeks they're all going to be there, and they will be broken down into sections so you can see the examples of the 17 competencies being put into place for different pupils and different scenarios.
And we hope to be starting to edit that next week. I can't give you a time scale when it'll come up, but it'll be pretty soon, I think.
We're trying to keep these a little bit short because for various reasons it's Friday and interest dwindles after a while, so it's lovely to see those of you that have hung on with us, so that's really great. I keep meaning to remember what next week's live chat is. To rack my brains. Oh, I think that I'm right in thinking it's improving your standards check grade. So perhaps those of you that have not necessarily failed may have scored really well, but actually looking for an opportunity to see how you debrief yourself from a standards check and begin to prepare for your next one. So I've been asking driving instructors recently, at what point does a driving instructor become post standards check then become pre-standards check again. So at what point, and for some of you, I know that's the day after, you do your standards check and then off your head goes for the next 2 to 4 years. Some people might not think about it until a couple of weeks before the standards check. So that kind of difference between post-standards check and pre-next standards check. So I think the next one is how to improve on your standards check grade. So in other words, how to kind of reflect on your performance and where to put that focus.
So whereas always we'll send out an email a few days before and put it on the Facebook page and things anyway.
Yeah.
Can't remember when it is.
But go and have a little play with goal setting. Go and put those 5 golden rules into place, and see what you come back with. Because certainly the driving instructors that I find have positive, beneficial lessons are the ones that can have those 5 golden rules, and it works for.
And just to finish it off, then this is goal setting for the pupil. Would you say it's advantageous, if that's a word, to goal set for yourself for each session or each day or each week or whatever?
You could even leave this live chat now if you're this sad and go and goal set for yourself how you are going to put goal setting into your next lesson.
Yeah, I've got that, yeah.
So how you're going to do it, why it's going to be important to you, the motivation behind that, the action plan that you're going to put into place, and thinking about your roles and responsibilities within that.
And I think that what we always say when I can talk these types of talks is, if you've got a standards check tomorrow, which is unlikely because it's Saturday, is not to try something new on the day you standards check. So make sure you're practicing it. Practice it in small ways, be like clutch control, feed your way into it, and don't try and sort of barrage every single lesson tomorrow with goal setting. Maybe set smaller goals on the first one, shorter goals, and get used to it. Build yourself up. Analyse yourself, video yourself, look back at it, and set your own goals to how to set goals, as Lou said.
Chris, I read your question. I'm not necessarily going to answer it tonight because I'm going to keep it very specific to the goal setting. But I think that tonight is evident that people perhaps have questions that are off topic and branch off, which is great. So I'm wondering whether actually we're better off doing a live chat that has that's goal is to answer questions as and when they come in, so that we can kind of make it relevant to the things that are kind of going on for you at the moment. So we'll look at that, because that would be really useful.
Squeeze one in quite soon. I think we used to do those once every 3 or 4 weeks. They're quite useful.
So we'll do that without a shadow of doubt, because I've got a few ideas and maybe.
They can cover things like PDI training and part 2s and 3s if that's where you're at. They can be the goal can be to have no rules really about the questions, just things that have been bugging you that you may not have anyone to ask or wanted to ask before or whatever. And the bottom line's rules at the end of an email as well.
Well, I think that you're on the page, Chris, so you could even just write your question on the page, and that means it's open to other people who may well have some good ideas as well. So feel free to use the Driving Instructor site like that as well.
Absolutely.
So that's what they're for. So that's it. Thank you very much. Go and enjoy the rest of your Friday evening or whatever day it is that you're watching this. And as I said at the very beginning, if you missed these live chats come to you with thanks from Marmalade Network. So go and have a look at those guys. Great guys, there to benefit you. Lots of positives with their scheme and their support. So go and check them out. So that's that. Oh yeah, see you in Glasgow. So yeah, absolutely, it'd be lovely to see as many of you that can make it to Glasgow. Two workshops going ahead: the Standards Check and Beyond, which is fairly infamous now, and the Train the Standards Check Trainer. And you are welcome to either. So Glasgow is in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so.
I needed a Scottish accent then, but I decided not to.
No. You wouldn't have known it was a Scottish accent anyway. Anyway, on that note.
Bye.